Thank you guys so much for being here. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to drop your socials. So the thing about online courses is you don't need all these things that you might think you need to get started. It's actually a lot easier than you think it is. So the number one thing is you don't need expensive equipment. I actually have a $46 camera that I bought probably years after starting my business. But all you really need is a laptop and a few things, right? You don't need advanced technical skills. Hopefully, since you're here today, you know how to use Zoom at minimum. But that's even if you decide to have an online course, right? There's different ways to offer your course. You don't need a large audience, right? If you can touch one person, you've done something great. But of course, that depends on your needs, any type of grant requirements, and so forth. You don't need perfect content. Like any program developer knows, it's always about improving and enhancing and looking at market trends and research to enhance what you've already put out. And there's a lot of great ways to do that through feedback surveys, assessments, focus groups, etc., to always enhance your content. So it's not about having perfect content to get started. There's no such thing as perfect. But if you don't get started, you never know if it's good enough to reach who you're trying to reach. You don't need loads of money to get started. That's a really interesting point for some because people think you really need all this money to get started, but there are grant opportunities for startups. There are also loan opportunities. There's so many funding opportunities. You can have people who donate or sponsor whatever your needs are for building your online course. You don't need a fancy degree or years of experience. Hear me out, and I'll share on why I feel that way in just a moment. You don't need to charge a fee for the course. Depending on your goals, you might not charge at all for the course. But some people charge tens of thousands, hundreds of $1,000s for the course as well. And even if you're a nonprofit, you can charge for your course. And you don't need to teach it one way. Online, offline, hybrid, we'll talk about later, are different ways that you can teach your online course or your course in general, right? If it's offline. Now, drop in the chat if you felt like you needed one or all of these things. Do you feel like you needed most of these things to even get started? Yes. For credibility, yes. Okay. And I like that word credibility. But the only thing on here that I think is based on credibility is fancy degrees and years of experience. But I'll jump into that in a second. If we got our phone, we can do just about anything. But I like to talk about the digital divide and those who don't have access to technology for a lot of reasons. And so that's something to be mindful of. But the thing about it is that you do need an online course outline and validated. And before I jump into the other points, what I mean by validated is in the course development world, oftentimes if you have a new course that you want to put out in the community or wherever, you usually will have people come and take the course first before you say that you have a proven framework or you can provide people results. Because in order to provide people with have guaranteed results, you need to make sure that it's been validated to give people those results, right? You do need some experience and skills to teach the information in your online or offline course. And when I said you don't need the fancy degrees and years of experience, it made me think of my personal situation. My husband and I, we have a 2-year-old, and we really love sleep training. That's an interesting thing that's come about, right? We don't have a degree in whatever that category of life would be. We only have one child. Maybe she's just our golden child and setting us up for the future for whoever comes next. But we were able to sleep train her without doing the cried out method. She was sleeping through the night about 2 months old. And even 2.5 years later, she still goes to bed at the same time. She loves her sleep. We do not co-sleep. And so what I mean about not having all these fancy degrees and experience, years of experience, is that we don't have those things, but we've been able to help our friends and our family, some of our peers through insights on how you can sleep train your baby without the cried out method. Some of that is the degree experience. Also, that work experience, right? I feel like when I talk to people almost every day about business, particularly moms, because that's one of the communities I'm in, they're immediately stopped by, that sounds too complicated. And even with the individuals who register today, it seemed to sound overwhelming for them. They didn't know where to start. They weren't sure if they were good enough or smart enough. And you don't know until you try. You don't know until you put towards that effort, until you put out that imperfect content or course. Okay. But you also need to be organized. And I'm going to share with you a resource list of tools that you can use to be organized, also ethical, right? Not teaching something that isn't validated or proven or leads to success. One thing I know about online courses is you can't guarantee anything, because even if you give someone all the information and insights that they need to get to that next level, enhance their knowledge or skills, it's really up to them to take action. I've been teaching online courses to commissioners and individuals who just entered into the field. So entry level to executive level. But I've seen at all levels, if they don't take action, they don't get the results that they hope for. Emotional intelligence, right? So learning how to communicate effectively, how to go about challenges effectively without letting your emotions take over in a negative way. And there's going to be some conflicts. There's going to be some things that could happen with your online course, right? When people are going through it, where you have to really lean on that emotional intelligence. People didn't meet the deadline for when they lose access. People didn't do this, that, and the other, and they're unsatisfied. But how do we make sure that people are still satisfied, even in the midst of dissatisfaction? And then I want to make sure I touch on this, is that typically you really do need to be a business to have an online course. In the beginning stages, when you're developing your course and you haven't made any money, if that's not your goal, perfect. But if you're planning to make money from an online course, you technically do need to be an established business. I'm not going to really get into all the details and intricate background of developing a business, because that's an entire conversation and training. When it comes to charging people for an online course or any type of product or service, after you make so much, I believe it's $600 or more, you technically have to file taxes for that income. Okay. And if you don't, you'll get huge penalties from the IRS. They will find you. So really, if you're thinking to build an online course and you are an individual, start that business. It's actually grants and opportunities out there available to help you get your business started. But if you're part of an organization already, perfect. It's pretty much a green light to go ahead and get started with creating an online course.